The Musketeer units are finally revealed, and so it be, they aren't the new Legion mechanic.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we've got some awesome new reveals as we finally get the skill reveals of the new Musketeer units that were covered a couple of weeks ago when they hinted and revealed that they're gonna reintroduce this old Legion pair back into Standard. But funny enough, even though we got some Neo Nectar reveals, we didn't get the new VR as well as the new mechanic with the VR. We only saw the new reveals for the Musketeers and this new archetype Musketeers that they are going to bring back in Standard. What I mean with that is, yes, we already had some Musketeer cards in the previous set that could generate tokens, but it wasn't really an actual archetype that we have with Silverthorns right now. But now with the new cards that are new Musketeers, it looks like we're going to have a Musketeer archetype, or at least something that benefits from running multiple Musketeers in a single build. So without further ado, let's jump right into these cards, because these three new Musketeers are very interesting for Standard, but also bring something new to the table for premium that could be really scary and problematic for a healthy format. So we're gonna start off with a simple one, and it's a new grade 1 that is Infirmium Musketeer Gaston. And this grade 1 has a very simple skill. It's continuous and Vanguard circle. During the turn it was placed from deck, this unit gets power plus 10k. So basically, whenever its superior calls for that turn from the deck, it becomes an 18k attacker or booster. This is pretty good for Standard and Premium as a whole spectrum. As for Standard, you finally get a good solid beater that doesn't really cost you anything to make it a good function card. It doesn't really rely on the mechanic of the tokens or some other weird thing. It just functions and works together with the old VR Cecilia that can potentially superior call it with her skill, pop it onto the back row or front row, and with Cecilia it can become a 28k attacker as a front row unit, or just a solid 80k booster behind another very strong attack to make very scary columns. But in Premium, this works very well with Katrina, as the new Katrina strides usually tends to go for the multi-tag with tokens. So whenever you attack and you're going to superior call new units from your tokens, you usually want to superior call a unit that can then superior call another token, as those tokens will become 15k attackers and boosters as they get an additional plus 10k of Katrina herself. But the problem with that is you're going to build 30 and 40k lanes, meaning you're not hitting magic numbers. With this grade 1, then you can instead superior call a token generator, you can superior call this thing, and it becomes an 80k attacker or booster in that column, meaning the column turns from a 30k to a 33k. Meaning you're gonna hit magic numbers, which gonna make a difference for a lot of decks, because a lot of meta decks calculate on the fact that they need to guard 20k for most of your attacks. When it suddenly spikes to 25, that is a big difference. Now onto the main cards of this reveal, and those are the grade 3 and the grade 2 that used to be the pair for a Legion. And we're gonna start off with the grade 2, that is Peony Musketeer Tornai. And her ability is auto and Vanguard a rearguard circle. When placed, cost counterblast 1 and retire a rearguard. Look at the 3 cards from the top of your deck, call 2 cards with Musketeers in their card names, or any 1 card from among them to the rearguard circle, and put the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. So this is basically a Cecilia light, as the old Cecilia could go for a counterblast and a retire, and could search the top 5 and superior call 2, and if you had another grade 3 in soul, you could superior call 3 and give the front row plus 10k. This, however, has the same cost, but it can only superior call 2 Musketeers or a non-Musketeer unit. So there is some value in this card in any type of build for Neo Nectar, as it can just superior call 1 unit, so you trade 1 for 1 with a counterblast. Not that ideal, but if you want to have some deck thinning, because it does deck thin while you do this, it has some function with that. But if you run a multiple Musketeer deck, it's a natural +1, and that is pretty handy, as also it stays when placed. So it can be when placed from hand, it can be placed from deck, so you can chain it with other skills, and that functions really well. Maybe if you ever get multi-attack pattern where you can place it during mid-battle, like we have in Premium with the Ember clone, then this could have some function by calling multiple cards even during the mid-battle, so you can multi-tag pretty effectively. But even though it's a Cecilia Light, I do need to remind you, it works on Vanguard Circle as well on Rearguard Circle. So in the early game, you can refill your board or reload your board if you don't really have an ideal board from an early setup. But at the same time, you can also exchange non-useful cards for better cards. So let's say, for example, on turn 1, you generated a token, you write into this thing, you can then retire that token and turn it into a useful grade 2 or grade 3 maybe, and then suddenly you have a better early aggression. And this works really well with Musketeers because we already have token generators of Musketeers from the previous sets. We have the grade 2 and we have the grade 1. Both are very useful, and I'm talking about Mirka and I'm talking about Sylvia. So it does synergize with this skill as well. But the fact that it also works on rearguard circles gives you a little bit more utility options than just relying on your Vanguard circle skills. Because with the previous build, only your VR could superior call units. That was your plus engine. Now we have a rearguard unit that can similarly do the same, and sure, you're probably gonna go 1 for 1, but exchanging your plant tokens for actual grade 1s and grade 2s is pretty damn strong, especially in standard, because in standard we don't really gonna use the tokens all that much if you're not gonna use the new VR, as we're gonna probably take a look in by next week or the week after that when we get the entire reveals of that card. So overall, it's a pretty damn good card. But let's take a look at the new grade 3 that synergizes with this one, as well as with all the other Musketeer support that we already got. So let's take a look at that one. And that is Peony Musketeer Martina. And her skill is act on Vanguard Circle, once per turn, cost Soul Blast 1, retire a rearguard, so still very similar to the previous one. Look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, call 1 card from among them to a rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. So once again, it's somewhat similar to Cecilia's skill. As you check top 5, you need to retire a unit, but in this case you can only superior call 1, so it's a 1 for 1. But the big difference is you're using a Soul Blast, not a Counter Blast. So you can basically do this for quite a lot of turns in a row. So you can go for Cecilia for the Counter Blast and then go back into this thing if you want to use your Soul Blast. So you can mitigate your resources, and that's a pretty good thing. And sure, you cannot reload the board effectively, but in the Musketeer builds, your board is almost 100% filled most of the time. Only when you're going to intercept, you're going to get some value out of them. So going 1 for 1 at some point, at a certain point in the game, isn't really all that bad. And it just gives us another good right option. This means with the upcoming Musketeer build, you will have Cecilia as a right, and you have Martina as a right. Either of those right targets are pretty damn ideal, and you're gonna get some value out of them. Once again, this Vanguard skill is similar to the grade 2 that we just talked about, that we can just generate a token in the previous turn and then sack off the token for a actual good card. I mean, we have the new grade 1 that will become an 18k attacker or booster when it is called through the deck. And these 2 cards synergize really well with that and with the plant mechanic tokens, so this does work quite effectively with it. But her effectiveness and lethality comes from her second ability, and that is continues on rearguard circle. During the turn it was placed from deck, this unit gets power plus 5k and critical plus 1. This means we have Cecilia as a main Vanguard and this as a backup right target, but it's also even more deadlier on the rearguard circle, because now we can swing with high numbers which will have naturals to crits, meaning we don't have to use force 2 to pressure with crits, and that is very deadly. And in Premium, this is even worse, because in Premium Katrina, you can just search this thing out whenever you want, meaning you can always come with a crit pressure for at least 4 attacks in a single game if you do not get this one in your hand or ride it. So that is pretty damn devastating if you ask me. But in Standard, this is pretty nice, because now you can basically go for a good early aggression with your Musketeer cards, because you can use Mirka and Sylvia to ride and generate tokens, and then you can use Tornai and Martina to sacrifice those tokens to call out actual Musketeer units that can benefit other ways. You can maybe call out even more token generators, or you can go with a Gaston and have a good solid beater or booster. But another thing is, as you can see, we have a lot of superior call effects, and we can chain them, because Martina can superior call a unit, and that can potentially be a Tornai, and then Tornai can superior call another thing, and that could maybe be another Tornai, and you could chain this a little bit, and that works really well with Dandelion Musketeer. Mirka, as her second ability, allows it to gain power each and every single time a unit is called in the same column as her. Because you're now gonna multi-superior call a lot, you can proc this skill a couple of times, and you're not gonna mind this yourself, because every time you're gonna resolve a skill, you need to retire a unit. So you can retire the unit that was called in front of the Mirka to make room, and then call a new unit in front of it. This way you can stack more power onto the field through all this superior call effects. I think this Musketeer engine is looking to be very interesting, and I think it looks really awesome in my honest opinion. a lot more interesting than just the token mechanic of Neo Nectar, because if I'm very honest, the previous build with the token generating mechanic and the old VR Cecilia itself, that build was, in my honest opinion, a very dull and very boring build to play against and play with, because you're always gonna do the same thing over and over again. These new Musketeer reveals, as well as with the previous support, looks to be a lot more randomized, and there's a lot more different plays you could do depending on which cards you're gonna see at the top cards of your decks. So you have a lot more lines of play to do, and that is something very interesting. So I'm very curious of what the rest of the Musketeer support is going to be, because there's a lot of potential. But at the same time, a lot of scary things will happen for premium, because we now have this grade 1 that can turn our 30 and 40k columns into 33 and 43k columns. So we're now actually hitting magic numbers with the Katrina token turns. That is already really scary in itself. But now we also have a grade 3 that will have a natural crit, which will gain power on their own for free, that synergizes with Katrina. So we can have natural 2 crit attacks whenever we want. And if we combine that with the multi-attack grade 2, we can potentially attack twice with a double crit lane that probably is gonna hit for 30, 38, 28, depending on how much power we can stack onto one column. Yeah, that is pretty devastating. And so I'm very anxious for what this is gonna do for premium. But for standard, I'm pretty damn excited, because this looks to be a very awesome new addition for the build. But that's everything for this Cardfight update. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new cards for Neo Nectars, or basically the new Musketeer build, as things are looking to be very interesting. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters for making this video and everything happening on the channel possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support us, then you can simply do that by going over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!